search of truth.
Peekaboo!
There is but one God.
Peekaboo.
At the beginning of the movie, we see Grace, who says that her brother used to believe she had a guardian angel, and she used to believe in nothing. Just then a nun moves towards her and points the gun at her. After this, we see Grace conducting an eye checkup for an elderly woman. She informs her that her senior is at the top of this field and will be very interested in her case. Grace mentions that he is her very good friend, and she will talk to him to accommodate her. In the evening, when she emails the old lady, notifying her that her colleague has agreed to accept her as his patient, suddenly the light in her room goes out. When she goes outside to check, she finds a spot of blood on her brother's photo and sees a nun in the mirror's reflection, who disappears the next moment. She moves towards that side scared, but she doesn't see anyone there, and suddenly her phone rings. She picks up the phone, and Detective Harris tells her that her brother Michael's body has been found at a convent in Scotland. The next day, Grace reaches Scotland, where Harris, while taking her to the convent, informs her that Father Carroll was visiting from Rome and was found murdered in the chapel with his torso sliced open. Her brother's body was found nearby on the rocks below the ruins of the old church, so the working assumption is that he killed Father Carroll and then took his own life. Grace asserts that her brother would never kill anyone, nor would he take his own life. Harris asks her how her brother came to be involved with such an extreme sect. Grace says she doesn't know and asks him what he means by extreme. He tells her that they follow a hardcore reading of the Bible, and a few weeks ago, one of the nuns claimed that she saw the devil. She cut her own eye out and was attempting to do the same to the other one but fainted in the process. They get to the convent, and Mother Superior tells Grace they're meeting under tough circumstances. She explains that confronting the devil weakens its power. Mother Superior shares that, before Grace's brother turned dark, everyone loved him. When Grace asks for clarification, Mother Superior reveals that it was a demon, not her brother, who killed Father Carroll. Despite his mental strength, her brother tragically took his own life while fighting the demonic force. Disliking the talk about her brother, Grace demands to be shown where he was killed. While guiding her, Harris mentions that Mother Superior can restrict police access and transfer the case to Rome, as the land belongs to the Vatican. During their conversation, Grace notices a nun there, but she moves forward ignoring her, and Harris informs her that Michael's body was discovered on the rocks below. Following this, she is presented with Michael's lifeless body, causing her to become highly emotional and burst into tears. At that moment, Michael's ghost emerges behind her, warning that it's not a safe place, and a childhood flashback unfolds, in which, due to a storm, they run towards their house. Upon regaining consciousness, Grace finds herself in the hospital, where she encounters Father Romero, who has arrived from the Vatican due to the tragedy. Grace asserts that Michael was clean, and if he was discovered on the beach, there should be sand on him. Romero explains that sometimes they clean the body for autopsy purposes but assures her he will investigate the matter. Later, Grace revisits the location and witnesses a nun jumping off the cliff, followed by several others. Overwhelmed, Grace becomes dizzy, falls into the sea, and then abruptly wakes up in a room within the convent. Following this, Grace seeks out Mother Superior and inquires about her luggage. Mother Superior, instead, invites her to join them for lunch. Grace questions if they concealed evidence, pointing out discrepancies in their statements. Mother Superior asks why she thinks so, and Grace mentions her belief that her brother was harmed before his fall. Mother Superior inquires if it's a feeling or something seen in her mind's eye. Mother Superior explains that they lead a disciplined life, inviting Grace to join them for lunch. Grace complies, and Mother Superior comments that Grace is not as her brother described. She adds that he spoke fondly of Grace but expressed sadness over her lack of religious inclination. At this moment, Father Romero enters, and Grace asserts her desire for answers. Father Romero tells her that the church dates back to the 12th century, and it hosted religious artifacts. It was on the Pilgrim's Trail, a beacon of light in dark times. When it collapsed, the stones were repurposed for the new chapel, as they believed the stones carried more godliness. The founders, known as the Knights of the Morning Star, held significant influence. Rumors of a dark force affecting even the nuns persisted from the mystical past. The confessional, symbolized by a cross, was where returning crusaders sought forgiveness by stepping back for each sin. The more steps they took, the more sins were forgiven. Grace says they fell to their death, to which Father says God caught them. Father Romero discloses that Mother Superior confessed to washing Grace's brother's body, citing it as a sign of respect. He reported this to Detective Harris, who wishes to speak with Mother Superior again. Father Romero expresses concern about the lack of transparency staining the church's history. He states his intention to reconsecrate the chapel and grounds, aiming to bring them back to God, and such a sacred service cannot be conducted on a foundation of lies. Following this, Father Romero presents Grace with her brother's belongings and requests that if she discovers anything useful, she informs him. Grace checks her brother's belongings and finds a diary. She sits there and starts reading the diary, in which there are some strange pictures, and it is written that Grace had no memory of her life before they adopted her, but she would see things no one else could. Grace gets up and sees the reflection of a nun in the mirror, though in reality, there is nothing there. Meanwhile, we overhear Mother Superior and some nuns discussing Grace, expressing the belief that the visions have begun and they must take swift action. Grace reads on, discovering that the darkness entered their lives disguised as a miracle. In a flashback, she recalls praying fervently not to let her father die and to bring him home. Suddenly, she hears her dad's voice and sees him standing outside. However, in the next moment, he appears behind her in her room. Just then, Grace hears a nun sobbing and observes her fleeing in fear. Curious, she follows to investigate and overhears the nun muttering about not letting someone take her. Grace approaches and discovers it's Meg, who has cut her hand with a knife, but to Grace's surprise, Meg appears from behind her. Meg reveals that she knew Grace would find her secret hideaway, a place she goes when she has dark thoughts, and these statues guide her. Meg expresses concern that she might be a really bad person. Grace reassures her, stating she's not, and then asks her if she can help her make a phone call. Grace proceeds to call John, revealing Michael's murder and her current location in Scotland. She questions whether grief can lead to blackouts and hallucinations. John explains that grief is complex and often associated with an underlying disorder. Grace admits feeling like she's losing control, but just as Mother Superior offers help, Grace abruptly ends the call. Mother Superior inquires about what she has seen, but Grace sternly asks her to stay away. Now while she is leaving, Mother Superior says the visions are memories from her past and her future. Later, Harris interrogates Mother Superior, who explains that she cleaned Michael's body because he had crabs feeding on him. She claims that whatever had possessed him to commit those evil acts had left him. He accuses her of lying, warning that the prosecutor will expose it in court. Harris suggests that what may seem like protecting colleagues now could turn into a criminal act, potentially leading to jail time for her Christian act. Mother Superior asserts that, as they speak, a battle is raging between God and Satan. She contends that a Christian act should never be punished. Meanwhile, as Grace examines a painting, Father Romero comments on how the devil lurks in the shadow of temptation, emphasizing Mother Superior's efforts to remind her nuns of this truth. He then inquires if she checked her brother's belongings. She confirms, assuming he looked at Michael's journal. Romero reveals that he did, but it seems to be written in some ancient language. Grace corrects him, stating that it's actually a childhood code they started using just before their mother died, and Michael would have written it that way to prevent others from reading it. Later, Grace revisits the journal. In it, Michael wrote that they never spoke of the events that happened, but those events forever shaped them. Grace had tried to shield him from the darkness, but it had returned. In a flashback, it's revealed that Grace's father miraculously survived the storm. However, he kept Grace, Michael, and their mother locked in a cage. He angrily approaches Grace, pulling her out of the cage, and then takes her away by her hair and a crucifix, while she tosses a key down to her mother. Now, as Grace goes to the washroom, her mother seizes the opportunity to break free and escape from the house. Their father pursues her, and in the chaos, Grace attempts to free her brother. Suddenly, they hear their mother scream, and as Grace rushes to the window, she witnesses the horrifying sight of her father killing her mother. He angrily returns home, searching for Grace and blaming her for the tragedy. Fearing for her safety, Grace hides under the bed, but suddenly, someone attacks her father, and he falls in front of her. Later, while Father Romero is preparing for the consecration, Grace informs him that Michael discovered the convent's attempt to adopt them when they were young. While she has no memory of it, she believes it's what drew him here. Romero says he doesn't know anything about that but mentions that Mother Superior said Michael came in search of the truth about a relic. He explains that the original church housed a relic, but an earthquake in '93 caused the cliff to subside, and the ocean claimed the crypt containing the relic. Romero expresses satisfaction that it's gone, attributing the church's bad reputation to the Crusaders' worship of idols and the quest for power. He invites Grace to read books on that period in history if she's interested. Now in a flashback, we see that Father Jacob and Sister Diane from Mount Savior Convent had come to adopt them. They take them with them, but Father Jacob stops the car midway and throws Michael out of the car, and both of them leave there, taking Grace with them. He tries to render Grace unconscious, but during this, they meet with an accident. Later, Grace reads some books and a nun provides her with another one, mentioning that Father Romero thought she might be interested in this book as well, and Grace is shocked to see that the book is written in the same code language. Now while Grace is leaving from there, she sees a door open there. She goes down to a basement, where she has visions of her brother being tortured to divulge information about the relic. When he remains silent, Mother Superior orders him to take to the ruins, stating it's time for him to make peace with God. However, Michael retaliates by stabbing Father. Following this, Sister Matilda arrives with a knife in hand. She reassures Grace not to fear her. She tells him not to be afraid of her because she is just a lamb, and it is she who is the wolf. Matilda urges Grace to accept God into her heart and attempts to stab her. However, an unseen force intervenes and controls Matilda to stab herself instead. The scene shifts to Grace with Harris, who inquires about what has been happening. He mentions reading her journal and notes that she never revealed she lived in the area. Grace responds, asserting that she knows why they killed Michael. Harris points out the pattern of people around her dying, and that the nun who died was an eyewitness to her brother's murder. She explains that Michael was pursuing a missing, powerful relic, and they killed him because he refused to help them find it, and now, she believes they are using her for the same purpose. After this, Mother Superior and Grace are imprisoned. Later, Harris informs Grace that Father Romero called, and a nun has come forward, claiming to have witnessed everything and confirming Grace's account. Grace talks to her dad before going back, where he tells her that he took her in and tried to love her as his own, and it was hard, because she is the devil's own. He should have killed her. Instead, he kept her in a cage to hurt no one. He tells her that he died in that storm. She called on someone that night, but it was not God that answered, and the darkness took him. It was a miracle, much like the day he discovered her wandering on the beach at the age of 10, all alone. Someone had thrown her into the sea to die, but she didn't perish. He asks her how it feels, noting that throughout her life, wherever she goes, death and destruction seem to follow. She could have saved her mother that night, but she didn't, because she wanted him to stay here, out of the way. Meanwhile, Harris interrogates Mother Superior, who reveals that Michael found the relic and was supposed to return it to them. However, he didn't comprehend its power. She asserts that Grace needs to be purified, cleansed, and contained once more. Harris questions if she thinks the relic is not an object but Grace herself, to which Mother Superior affirms that she knows Grace is the relic, and so does she. On the other hand, Grace returns to the convent, and she asks does anyone knows where Father Romero is, but no one answers her. She then goes to Meg, and asks her about Father Romero, but Meg says Mother said she would be their downfall. Then Sister Beth moves to attack Grace, but some unseen force stops her, and Meg runs away in fear. Grace runs after Meg to stop her, but Meg comes to her secret hideout and says that Mother thinks she is weak, but God's gift fills her with strength to do his bidding, so she will not let her take her. Grace also follows her there, and Meg cuts her hand with a knife. Grace tries to help her, but Meg says she can feel the sin leaving her. Then suddenly Meg comes to her senses and gets scared after seeing her own blood, and she begs Grace to don't let her die. In a startling moment, Grace sees herself covered in blood in the mirror, and as Meg dies, Grace is left believing it's happening because of her. She returns to the convent, and as Father Romero approaches her, she asks him to stay away. She says that her father was right, that there is something wrong with her. Meg is dead, and she has seen it before and she couldn't stop it. In response, Father Romero reassures her that she is not cursed but blessed. He encourages her to dispel the darkness and embrace the light. He then asks her to join their sermon, and she shall be absolved. All the nuns pick her up and start moving forward with her. During this, Father Romero prays to Michael Archangel to thrust Satan down to hell with those other wicked spirits that wander through the world for the ruin of souls. After this, all the nuns put Grace down and sit on her knees, and Father Romero asks her does she admits to her sins and seeks to be cleansed by the Holy Spirit. Grace agrees, and with Father Romero's permission, she steps into a tomb, and in a flashback, it is shown that she had been confined there before. Father Romero orders the crypt to be sealed, praying to God to let her dwell once again and bring the weight of heaven upon the tomb. Suddenly, something drips onto Father Romero's hand, and when he looks up, a crucifix falls and pierces his back. Witnessing this, the nuns become frightened. Meanwhile, Grace emerges from the tomb, questioning if it was all a plan to bury her alive. Father Romero then claims she is the darkness that proves the light, explaining that her hatred for God is why she lost touch with her brother. He suggests she seeks forgiveness from him. Meanwhile, Harris reaches the convent looking for Grace, but she had come to those ruins to apologize, and for every sin she has committed, she keeps moving one step back. However, Harris arrives and asks her not to do this. Grace says it's the only way, but he explains that's some bullshit they filled her head with. Despite hearing Harris, Grace jumps anyway, and in another flashback, it's revealed that she was the one who visited her house that night, the reflection in the mirror, the savior who rendered her father unconscious, and the cause of the car accident. The revelation unveils that the unseen force protecting Grace from harm was none other than Grace herself. She was also responsible for the crucifix falling on Father Romero. While Mother Superior, Sister Beth, and Sister Matilda attempt to convince Michael to jump from the chapel, Grace arrives to apologize for abandoning him in the darkness and concealing her true identity. She assures him she can save him, but he insists he has to do this and trusts that God will catch him. Subsequently, he jumps from the chapel. The next day, it is revealed that Grace's body is missing. Harris once again interrogates Mother Superior, questioning how she got under Grace's skin and what activities at the convent could drive someone like Grace to kill themselves. Mother Superior insists that Grace is not dead, asserting that she possesses incredible power and will use it for evil until she is stopped. We then see that Grace has returned to London, and John informs her that he saw her patient who was supposed to go blind. To their surprise, the patient's eyes were completely fine, and she only attended the appointment not to be rude. The patient claims it was a miracle, and Grace cured her. Here in a flashback, it is shown that Grace actually cured her eyes. Afterward, the movie revisits the opening scene where Mother Superior points a gun at Grace to kill her. However, a cab suddenly crashes into Mother Superior, seemingly killing her. Grace says that her brother used to believe she had a guardian angel, and she used to believe in nothing, but now, she is not so sure. Thanks for joining us on our horror movie recap adventure. If you enjoyed the chills, subscribing would mean a lot. Drop a comment to share your thoughts and keep the terror alive. Stay spooky and see you soon.